And so it dreams, it floats around here. Who knows what it does? It's like when the boss leaves, right? The staff does what it wants. The boss is coming back and the staff cleans up, right? So think of your subconscious as the staff and your conscious mind as the boss.
Financial independence,
freedom,
financial picture,
independent financially,
financial future,
financial freedom and wealth,
financial independence.
Get your fill, financial independence and long life. Welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life, where we explore ways to achieve those two goals, and we invite wonderful people on to help us. And today, Gail Kraft is going to be with us, and she's going to show us, well, I'm not going to tell you. Actually, I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen because I want you to be in suspense. Gail Kraft's Boston roots have led her down a path of self-discovery from a young age and have shaped her into a masterful business and spiritual leader. She's a powerful speaker. She's creator of the Flow Formula. She is an international best-selling author and writer of the Empowering Process, The Journey to Enlightenment, and more books, which we'll hear about in a minute. Gail is host of the Empowering Process podcast. She's spoken on multiple platforms about truth and flow and works with others to create harmony with their mind, body, and spirit so they can find and operate in purpose. Thanks, Gail, for being with us today.
That was a mouthful. I'll have to shorten that for people.
Hang on, she's really cool. We'll see how in a minute.
So shall I call you Chris or Christine?
Oh, it doesn't matter.
Okay,
I usually go by Chris, but some people prefer 2 syllables. I don't know.
I don't know. Well, thank you so much for having me, Chris. This is going to be so much fun.
It's definitely going to be so much fun.
Right. I've got so many stories to tell, but I think we're going to start with one that shook my world. And here's the thing. Understand, Chris, that your world is going to get shaken up many times. And that's why I learned that being spiritually connected helps you navigate those surprises that get thrown at you. Now, this one was not a surprise. I knew it was coming. And in fact, I was at a meeting. This is when I was working in corporate. I was in a meeting and a director came up to me offering to take me on as an employee because he saved people. He had a staff full of people that were great people, but for some reason was on the chopping block.
Huh.
And I looked at him and I said, oh, if you take me on, you go down with me. Thank you. I know it's happening, but save yourself. That's how bad it was. So I got fired, folks. And through a series of events after I got fired, I ended up hiring a lawyer to sue them. And that was such a toxic experience. It was they were nasty. I was nasty. I couldn't believe who I was becoming. And then one day I looked in the mirror and I said, who are you? I can't stand you. I'm surprised you have any friends left. And it's at that point that I made the decision. I had made the decision before that I wasn't going back to corporate. But I made the decision that it was time for me to get my act together, right? And take ownership of my part of that action, right?
Yeah.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah. And
stop blaming, right?
Yeah.
So I became a business process coach because that's what my claim to fame and my success in business. It was very easy to get that certification. And when I was done, I said to the trainers, great process. It's really how business succeeds. I love what we would be doing here, but you have nothing here for people. And I know if people are on board, it doesn't matter how good your process is, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get me this thing called the life coaching certification. And it was history after that, folks, right? I literally had this feeling for the first time of, rather than chasing success, of being literally from my gut pulled, that this is what your gift is and what you're here for.
Yeah.
Right. And I saw how that played out in my successes in my life. And so got life coaching certification. I got master NLP trained, quantum linguistics, soul realignment, right? Because as you start personal development, then it's like, well, then now what? And now what? I worked with motivational speakers for 5 years and presented, got certified as a trainer. I mean, you name it, I got the certifications. Who gives a crap? Doesn't mean that I'm good, right? Means that I passed a test. But I am. And I love what I do. And that is literally the key to my success, is loving what I do. Because when you do, first of all, you become very, very good at it. Second of all, that energy permeates in your conversations, in your relationships throughout your life. And your clients grow exponentially, right? And so through that, I don't do any work with clients that I haven't done on myself. So if we want to do timeline work, and if we want to work on fear and anger, done that, been that. If you want to take a deep dive into the Kabbalah, into the fifth dimension, shall we say, been there, done that. If you want to take a walk on the side of business, I may not do that anymore. I might refer you to someone.
Yeah.
Right. Although I'm very good at it, I'm not interested. But I obviously have such a network of friends who are in this field, and I know who is good at what.
Mm-hmm.
So what specifically, are you looking for process? Great. If you're ready for more than process, that's a different coach, right? So depending on what you want, I can hook you into a coach who will better suit your needs. So very, very careful that I am working with someone who's ready for the next level in their life. And that next level is success. So any questions, Christine, before I go on to the next, because I have like blah, 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 blah.
Well, actually, I want to go back to what you were talking about in the beginning, because it's very common, I think, when people are, whether they're in an unpleasant work environment, relationship, whatever, to blame the company, to blame whatever. And then like when you got fired and you said, oh, that's it, I'm going to go, they suck, I'm going to go back and sue them. And, they shouldn't have done this to me. And it's not until you stop and look at yourself and say, why did this happen to me? So life can either be a learning experience, or you can just find ways to stay in that negative spiral. So,
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk more about about that process, about why you didn't just stay and continue to hate and continue to be like blaming this bad experience that you had, which I think a lot of people do, right? They get stuck there.
They get stuck. They get stuck. Why? I think it's because I had a friend who was, surprise, very similar, right? Because you attract like people, because you attract people who are going to be at the same energetic consciousness and energy level as you.
Yeah.
And I was having breakfast with her, and I realized that it didn't matter how good her life was. She was complaining about everything.
Yeah.
And I thought, this is me. Right? Is that I am complaining, and she was trying to control even me, trying to control our friendships, right? And in that, it's like, am I that way? And yes, by the way, I was a control freak, not
Yeah.
anymore, but definitely. And one of the things that I unraveled is the why. Why did I behave this way? Now, it's not like seeing a shrink, right? I'm not going to go to the event and have you relive the event that is bothering you, because there's more and more and more.
Yeah.
But we would go there, and I'll give you an example. I'll give you the weirdest one, because this happened when I was becoming very intuitive, very in touch with our maker, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pulling the walls down, brick at a time, brick at a time. And there was just something that wouldn't move. And so I'm like, I don't even know what it is. So I don't know how to, like, you walk in circles and I don't know what to do with it because I can't see what the root is here.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something you all can try. It works, I promise you. When you go to sleep at night, your subconscious mind does whatever it wants, right? And
Yeah.
so it dreams, it floats around here. Who knows what it does? It's like when the boss leaves, right? The staff does what it wants. The boss is coming back and the staff cleans up, right? So think of your subconscious as the staff and your conscious mind as the boss, right? So the boss said, hey, you're not going to dream tonight. I have this question and you're going to go find the answer for me. The question is, what is this block? Because I want to address it and I can't seem to find the answer. So you're going to find the answer for me tonight. And your subconscious will do that. I woke up the next morning and I went, what? And so I wanted to validate. So I went to have coffee with my sister. I'm like, my sister's like 10 to 20 years older than me.
Wow,
right?
yeah.
Right. And having coffee with my sister, and I looked at her and I went, so Mama tried to abort me and she failed, right? And she looked at me and she goes, how do you know that? I went, I just needed to be sure. I said, because your body energetically holds on, even in vitro.
Yeah.
And so that first attempt at abandonment has stuck, right? Thank you for validating, because now I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
And then she called me a witch. Okay.
So there's that, but that's a whole nother block.
Right? Right. And so what did I do? I actually, a month later, had the opportunity to be in what's called an Indian sweat tank.
Cool.
And so it's a teepee, right? That's oval. And there's hot coals down the middle. Men on one side, women on the other side. And the medicine man, you go through 3 different renditions for 3 different purposes. And so you close the tank and you can't see anything. And as he's chanting, he's throwing water on the coals. And so you start to sink down because you can't breathe. You have to go as low as you can to breathe, and you get into an altered state.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought my mother down.
Mm-hmm.
And I went, Mom, given the time, given the situation you were in, given the choices available to you, if I were in your shoes, I have to admit I would have done the same thing. Thank you for failing. I forgive you.
Yeah.
And that was that. And that was that. And so that's one of the things I did. Did I go into that situation? No. It's like, how do I address that from a different perspective
Right.
than what I'm in now? So it's finding the situation, the root, that you may not even know what it is. I obviously didn't know consciously what it was. And then how do you look at that from a different perspective and get the gift and the lesson?
Yeah.
Right. And forgiveness doesn't mean, I mean, I did condone, I had to admit, if I was in her shoes, what choices would I have made?
Yeah.
Right. And I had to admit those would have been in that situation. Absolutely, I would have made the same choice. Yeah.
But even if you weren't, even if you wouldn't have done that, you still could have understood from her perspective, right?
Right.
I mean, it
Right.
wasn't done out of hate. She didn't even know you. She just was like, how am
No,
I going to make this
she was
thing
in a
work? I
panic,
can't, right?
right? She was in a panic, no-win situation, right?
Right.
And if you're right, even if my morals were different at this time, I still totally understood.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing about forgiveness, and so because it's not condoning,
Right.
and what you're trying to do in the process of forgiveness is, let's say it's something really heinous because there's, murdered your child. That's
Yeah.
not unforgivable,
Yeah.
right? So what do? You look at the perpetrator and you say, your wires aren't crossed properly.
Yeah.
You are who you are. You're not going to affect the rest of my life. Your crap is staying there in the past, and I'm going to make the best positive choices with the results in my life,
Right.
right? And you do not have permission to influence me at all,
Right.
right? And so it's all about permissions. Permissions are very powerful,
Mhm.
very powerful. And you can give them or not, right? And so
Right.
you can give yourself permission to move on, right? Is that easy to say? Of course. Is that easy to do? No. No. It takes a process
Yeah.
to get there, right? And it takes distance, right? And people say time heals. You can do that healing without time because time is relevant,
Yeah.
right? Right. But you do want to get that distance. You do want to honor yourself and not allow anyone else's energy to be part of the influence of your life, right? One of the things that I do, I'll talk about one of my clients. The way that he looked at it is really kind of funny. I want you to look at your life as though it were a movie or a stage performance. You're the writer, you're the director, you're the main character, and
Mhm.
you can allow other characters in or not in to your stage.
Yeah.
Right? Again, easily said than done. It takes a while to get that perspective. And this particular client, when we were talking, and he's like, I don't even see those people anymore that I don't want on my stage.
Mhm.
I know they're in the same room with me, but I don't even, is that okay? And we're like, yes, you don't want them on your stage, then their energy isn't even acknowledged by
Yeah.
your energy,
Right.
right? So cool.
And I think that's something, I mean, we've touched on it just a little bit in the conversation, but let's just dive a little bit deeper into the, law of attraction and how like attracts like and how that can influence your life, right? How you can allow yourself, like you said, this friend, big surprise, was as negative as I was. Well,
Right?
naturally.
Of course.
And if you feel like, oh, I'm surrounded by negative people, you got to like look inside and say, how did I get on their wavelength, right?
Right, 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 right. And so so I have a spiritualist friend who would, if there was an issue that I was dealing with, and he's like, she's just a mirror for you, Gail. There's something you need to work through. Right.
Yeah.
And accepting that is like, first of all, but then what is it that I need to work through? Right. And it's what you don't like. So if you're with someone and you're feeling like you're being controlled, like I said, I was a control freak. What happened? I married control freaks.
That can't go well.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't go well at all. You can't both control. So someone has to give up control, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's everything is energy, including us.
Yeah.
And until you internalize that, and that's, my book, Journey to Enlightenment, is part of the process of internalizing who and what we really are, so that we can function at a higher level and have better results in our life and be the writers and not responders to our life, right?
Yeah.
Right. When you're able to understand that, then we're like magnets, right? And energy, creates a frequency, or actually frequency creates the energy that brings in, like a magnet, attraction, and will repel anything that's not. You won't even see stuff. You won't even know that those things exist. I want to talk a little bit about, you don't see everything and you don't know everything. So you know that your mind takes in information. There's 3 to 6 billion bits of data surrounding you at any point in time. There's the sounds that you're not hearing, the birds, the wind, the trees. There's the sound of the refrigerator, the dog panting. Oh, you're right. The
Things
feeling
happening in the background that we don't need to pay attention
you don't even
to.
so your brain deletes that, right? And what it does bring in out of minimally 3 billion bits of data is 750 bits. So
A lot
look
of filtering.
that's not even filtering. That's deleting.
Yeah.
Then it filters, like, what does this mean to me?
Yeah.
And you put that information in folders so that you understand them. So for example, the folder I used to be put in is called the coaching folder. That's why I don't call myself a coach anymore. So you don't put me in a folder, and you have to be curious about what I do. Right? So you don't make an assumption based on that, right? But you put it in a folder, and then it goes through your history, right, of your belief systems, and it goes through, what's my emotional state right now? Am I receiving this as a happy person? Am I receiving it as an angry person? You're receiving it differently.
Yeah.
And so you're now making a story, an image that has nothing to do with what really happened. And you create that image and have a conversation. And so the fact that we even communicate at all is a miracle.
You're right, because we're all taking things in from so many different perspectives.
Right?
Well, that's why, you hear people say, like, how can people be happy with the world the way it is right now? And I'm just like,
I am.
I'm like, why is something going on?
Right. And so let's talk about reality. I love the statement, if a tree falls in the woods and nobody is there to hear it, did it make a sound?
Right.
And you know what the answer is?
Well, it can't, right? Because there's no one there to receive that vibration.
You have to witness it, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Now, it did make a frequency.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? But it
not
didn't.
But not a sound.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Because that frequency was not interpreted.
Yeah, exactly. And so now we can all graduate from Buddhist monk training.
101.
Because we've given away the cliffhanger.
The answer is no. Right. And so my personal journey now that I've written the book Journey to Enlightenment, is, so now what? So, my whole life, if you think of energy as a step ladder, has been, going up higher and higher and higher. Well, what does that mean? Well, what does that mean? And what does that mean? To the point where now I'm involved with the group that is for successful entrepreneurs who want to take their life to the next level.
Yeah. Their
life and their business. And that is not doing things the way it used to be done. It's called red pill pathways. And right.
Love it. Yeah.
Right? Take the red pill. And I'm all about how I got hooked into that is probably because I'm all about the truth that is in the lies. And this is when you start asking questions, and that's what happens when you change perspective and you start looking at things differently, you start to become more and more curious. And as you become more and more curious, what you thought was true turns out to be maybe not so much, right? And when you are no longer afraid of what you might find, because I think that's what holds a lot of people back, because we're built, we have these parameters that is our comfort zone, and what is on the other side is not something we can conceive.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're afraid because it's something we can't. Well, I'm sorry, quantum physics is helping us explain it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Right.
if you can like get your brain around quantum physics.
I love it. You can, yes, I can. My book has some of it in it. Right. In an understandable way. And so what I've done with that, because if I can be as woo-woo as I want, but it means nothing if I can't bring it into my everyday life, if I can't bring it into my business, if I can't bring it into my relationship. You know, I'm not among, I was at breakfast with a friend one time, and he's like, you woo-woo people, he goes, honest to God. And I looked at him and I said, wait a minute. I can contemplate my navel as much as I want, but if I don't take action, it's not going to get me the Maserati.
Exactly.
And he burst out laughing. He said, so it's not contemplating your navel. It's not the, law of attraction of, affirmations. And affirmations, by the way, don't work if you don't believe them.
Right.
So, you're wasting your time just to say it. But it's what's the right action for me to take in this minute?
Yes.
Right. And until you know what feels right to you, aligned, how do you know the right action to take this minute? Again, that's in the book, right? Journey to Enlightenment. This is the truth about you.
Yeah.
Right. And the truth about you is that you're not even energy. You are I am. So I don't want to say you. I am a reflection of this energy source we call soul. And think of it, and it's in the book. I have a friend who I love that metaphor. So think of it as the soul up here is being, that's true consciousness. That is the collective, that is God, that is whatever you want to call it, right? And it says, I'm kind of bored, so I'm going to create this story called Gail, right? Right? And so this third dimensional being that you see here is Gail, right? Now, between that soul and me, there's this thing called ego, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And ego's job is to keep Gail alive, right? Keep this information, right? And so you've got your conscious, your superconscious, and your conscious, your subconscious, and your superconscious, right? And your subconscious is like the bridge between the two. And so when I use the analogy of this is an avatar, we are an avatar. Look up the definition of avatar. That's what human beings are. It's a manifestation of God, right? And so if I am an avatar, I'm a puppet.
Puppet of yourself.
Right? And the hand inside the puppet is my subconscious. The superconscious is the soul, the God, is the true energy. And what we are trying to do on this planet is make that flow to such a degree that we are conscious of the conversations between this dimension and our source. Mm-hmm. Right? That's what all of this leveling up is all about, is that I want that conversation to be palatable. I want that conversation to be real. I want that conversation to be meaningful in my life today.
Yeah. So decipherable, right? The conversation's happening, but if you can't hear it, then
Well, you
you're not
don't
going to be able.
know, you don't know it's happening. So the other day, because I literally a while back said, I'm not going to ask you for help anymore. I'm not going to ask you for guidance anymore. I'm not going to ask you because that's kind of boring, but I want to be your friend. I want to hang out with you.
Nice.
I want to know you. I want you to know me, right? And I'm laughing because that is me, and all of this complexity from when you put the quantum physics in it. It's kind of funny because I'm talking to myself. I want to know you, Gail, right? Right. But I really felt that it was time for me to have that kind of connection. And so I recently asked, so how long have we been talking? And I heard a chuckle. I said, Gail, I've been with you your whole life. I've been talking to you your entire life. Remember when you were a child and it went through, because as a child, we haven't yet put the walls up. And we do miraculous things as children because we're fearless.
Yeah.
And we're curious as all get up. Right? I mean, a child could sit for hours and watch an ant build, we go in and out of an anthill, right?
Yeah.
Wondering what's going on and be fascinated.
Yeah.
Right? We don't even know that there are anthills anymore.
Yeah.
Talk about consciousness, right? Of filtering and deleting out, right?
Yeah, you don't delete out it's funny you say that. Like this morning I was on the bike at the gym and I was looking out the window and it just the way the branches were like against the sky and everything. It was just so beautiful, and I just noticed it in a different, I mean, I've sat on that bike many times, right? But
Right.
and even looked out and appreciated the fact that I could see trees instead of like a building or something, but I didn't interpret, or I didn't recognize or really tune into just the little tiny branches that were up in the blue sky and everything. And it just, like you say, it's like, oh, there's an anthill, I've just stepped on, I didn't even know it, but
right.
that stuff is there. And then sometimes that happens to me even when I'm driving, like all of a sudden I'll be like, wow, that's
Right.
just the most beautiful cloud or whatever, right?
Right. Oh, look at the trees. Oh my God, the colors, right? Oh,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
bugs are
exactly.
there, right?
Yeah.
Right. There was a point, I lived in San Diego for a while, and at the time that I was out there, I was reading the Course of Miracles. And I had a contract a couple of days a week in LA. So we're talking a 2.5 hour drive, right? When
Yeah.
there's no traffic.
And there's never no traffic.
There is at 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, good. Perfect.
Right. But coming home
Yeah.
would take longer than 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So I'm driving, and Course of Miracles is all about perspective and changing how you look at things. And as I was driving, I saw that the car was not moving, but the earth was moving underneath my car.
Cool.
Right? And I'm like, that's so cool.
You just reminded me of a time when I was young and experimenting with, pot and alcohol, which, didn't stick with me. But I was with a friend. Yeah, I'd stayed over a girlfriend's house. We were like 17 or something, maybe even younger. And she said to me, she said, wow, she said, I just suddenly became aware of my head. And when she
Right.
said that, then I became aware of my head. And it was like,
Right.
wow, so like, it's just a riot. But sorry, that was a little detour.
No, that's it. That's spot on, right?
Yeah.
That's spot on. It's the type of things that happen. And when we, as adults, we poo-poo those things,
Right.
right? And we miss out on messages and opportunities.
Well,
So
enjoy.
and enjoy. So we'll talk a little bit. So I'm in the middle of writing another book.
Mm-hmm.
As you see, I have no hair because I'm going through chemo treatment. And I'm doing this for a bunch of different reasons. It's horrible. It's a terrible thing. If anyone asks me, should they go through chemo, my answer will be no.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm writing almost like a diary, the book, and I'm having awarenesses that will knock your socks off.
Yeah.
Because this is all about focusing on yourself to a level like never before.
Yeah.
But before this happened, I had a series of precognitive events, messages that prepared me for this. 6 months before I stopped dyeing my hair. Well, I've got no hair now, but you don't dye your hair, right? Then I talked to a spiritualist friend of mine who said, this year, I have one more obstacle to overcome before I ascend. And it's like dying. And I'm like, I don't know what else I have to, okay. Right. So I'm trying to figure out what's the one thing, okay, I thought I took care of that. Then I went on a journey with a shaman. And she said, JC and Mary showed up and put a blue blanket of healing on you. And I'm like, oh, and Mary's staying. Like, oh, that's cool. I wonder what's going on. Then I got Gail, go out to Amazon and buy. I hadn't seen it. And as I'm buying the hats, I'm arguing. Are you crazy? You want me to what? I'm never going to wear them. I'm buying them because you want me to buy them. Yeah. But that's an insult to people going through, right? It was hilarious. I do what I'm asked, but it doesn't mean I don't go kicking and screaming. Then I went on a plant-based diet. And then I was told to call a doctor.
Yeah.
I do Eastern medicine 6 years before. It's been 6 years since I touched Western medicine because I don't trust it.
Yeah.
And so, Gail, you're so healthy, do you even want a mammogram? And I'm like, why not? Right. And then there's a whole story about what happened there, which is also miraculous, and miracle after miracle. And, I see this as a path that I'm going down for a reason. This is not healing me. This is killing me.
Yeah.
It is not healing whatsoever. Everything else that I'm doing is healing, but I spend 10 days trying to get poison out of my system that is destroying what was a healthy body.
Yeah.
Right. And see no benefit to it whatsoever. So, I have an appendix in my book that talks about what foods I'm on and why I'm on them, what, alternatives I'm using and why I'm using, because I'm using Eastern medicine as well.
Yeah.
Right. And then what options other than chemo you might want to look into.
Yeah.
Right. So that people have options before they're pushed into decisions.
Gail, with your chemo, are you doing any fasting at all?
It's difficult to fast when I have to have a meal with the medication.
Oh, okay.
That I need to take.
I've been reading about fasting, but also that people on chemo have had it helps to relieve some of the symptoms and some of the side effects and stuff.
I'm doing Reiki. I'm doing body talk. And, obviously meditation. I'm doing my own energy healing. And then, by the way, my stage 2 cancer was stage 1 by the time I had surgery because of I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And I eat based on what my body tells me to eat. So mostly it's plant-based, but there are a couple of times where I've had meat because my body has told me to have meat. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, but then we're back to plant-based.
Yeah.
But the purpose of me going through this has nothing to do with cancer. It has to do with changes that I'm going through on a very spiritual level that are blowing my mind. And I put it out on Facebook and on LinkedIn to a certain level, but I go deeper in the book as to why. And there was one thing that I had to address, and I resisted. And let's talk about resistance. It was hilarious because I burst out laughing when I finally stopped. Oh, I want to lean into this. but I'm resisting leaning into this. And so now I want to resist the resistance. So I want to lean, right? Which creates more resistance,
Right.
right? But I want to resist, right? And so,
That doesn't work.
right, but I want to lean in, right? And so it was so hilarious, to the point where, and it got to the point where, and my spiritualist used this. He goes, it's like a pimple popping. And so it's like, I got to a point where like this can't continue. And I read my own book.
Took
We
your own
have the
advice?
answers. We already have the answers, right? I was like, I need to get, I know this is because energy. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this energy? Right? Gail, read your own book, right? Okay. Right? And that's
Thank
when
you.
I stopped resisting.
Yeah.
And now I could lean in.
Yeah.
And in the leaning in, I reached out to a friend because we have to verbalize. Part of, we have to say out loud and not just to ourselves. We need to
Yeah.
be witnessed. Our pain needs to be witnessed, right? And so I reached out to a friend who he is very good at holding space. And I said, don't fix it. Don't judge it. Don't, right? Right. Just
Yeah.
hold space for me.
Yeah.
And this will be in my book, not on Facebook, right? And all he said was, I love your vulnerability and your growth. And that's when I went, oh. And what I have been dealing with and resisting is gone. I mean, to the point where, because your mind is going to tell stories, and I would tell stories, and I'd be, stop telling the story, Gail. This is ridiculous. Put it over there. Right. Meanwhile, I want to lean in, but I was saying, stop telling the story. Right. The stories don't even happen.
Yeah.
Anymore. And that's what freedom is.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. So as much as I've evolved, and as much as that, and it's not, evolution, I hate that word. As much as I have been able to elevate my consciousness, it doesn't mean I don't have ego, because ego is very important.
Right.
And sometimes ego makes mistakes. Right.
Because we are human at the end of the day.
We are human. So, and I have a friend, and the way that she puts it is perfect. So think of going, see, I use a spiral. She uses a diving board, and here's why. So I've elevated my consciousness, which means before I go to the next one, I have to take a dive in to the abyss, which means I've just elevated my consciousness. So the next dive I take is going to be deeper than the previous one.
Right.
And then it pops. I'm like, holy shit, the next one is right. So it's not that we don't go into the abyss. We go deeper into the abyss. And the thing is I'm not afraid of the abyss.
Right.
Because that's we come from that.
Right.
The Bible says, and then there was light. Before there was light, there was no thing.
Right.
That's the abyss. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So we go back to the beginning where all the answers are.
Yeah.
The abyss is in my book too.
Gail, when is the book going to be ready? When do you see
Well,
it being published?
Journey to Enlightenment is already ready.
Right.
I'm shooting for Lessons from Hell. That's the title. I'm shooting for April of 2024 because I want to finish chemo, right? And then see if there's anything with radiation that I give two craps about to talk about.
Yeah.
But I think the why of me doing this is it has presented itself.
Yeah.
Right. Has presented itself. And now it's just wrapping it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if I'm going to wrap it up because I have such an allergic reaction to the poison that I don't think I can take much more.
No. It doesn't, I mean,
yeah.
listen to your body, right? Listen to your higher self and
Right.
decide what to do.
Exactly. So, we are going to have that conversation tomorrow. I have a few notes that I wrote down that says, this is happening. I'm changing the formula Friday. So it's like, if this continues on the new formula, I will not be coming back.
Yeah.
Because it's just my body just hates this.
Yeah.
It just hates this.
So Gail, I mean, our time is flying by. How can people, it's been super talking to you. How can people find or get Journey to Enlightenment, and how can they get in touch with you if they're ready to have that conversation?
Oh my gosh. So Journey to Enlightenment, it's out on Amazon, and you can get it, as an ebook or a hard copy, or actually paperback,
Yeah.
For sure. That book has not only conversations about in each chapter, but there's an exercise at the end. There's a link to a meditation that supports the chapter, and there's an empowering question that also supports. So whatever modality works for you, there's a bunch of different modalities to help you actually integrate, not just read, right? What's going on. And to get in touch with me, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. I will not accept your friend request unless you tell me that this is where you saw me. That I have, I won't, because most people are trying to sell to me. Right? On Facebook, they're trying to pick me up, and on LinkedIn, they're trying to sell to me. It's like, no, goodbye. Right?
Yeah, it's exhausting.
It's really kind of strange. And and let me know that you want to connect with me and you'd like a chit chat. Now, I do have, my website. You can, if you go to my website and you want a complimentary session, it's not complimentary. I'm charging $75. I will refund the money or apply it towards if you'd want to work with me. And here's why I have that out there. I get no more spam now. No spam.
Yep. You have to pay $75 to spam you. It's not worth it.
They don't want to pay to spam me, right? So it's awesome.
But not only that, I mean, I think when people aren't paying for the appointment, they're less likely to show up, right? They're not respecting your time. It just, I think that's great. I truly 100% support that.
Right. And I have gotten so specific with, of course, boundaries.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the practices that I put in place because of my energy level, I'm going to keep.
Yeah.
At a certain time, I stop working. People text me, I might answer your text. But if you want me to go and, hey, send me a link to no.
Yeah.
I'm off the clock. I'm off the clock. And I see clients only certain days, and I only go to very specific networking events. Because the rest is a waste of my time. Yeah. And so you become very aware. Very aware.
So Gail, what's one question that you wish I would have asked you that I haven't asked you, or just one thing that you want to make sure that people take away from this conversation?
I want people to understand just how powerful and how important they are. The phrase, you're not broken. You're not broken. You're not scarred. You're not wounded. You have locked energy.
Yeah.
It's just energy that got stuck. And when I realized that, I have and it's in the book that's coming out, a prayer of untangling the energetic web. Right? If you can get to that point of untangling your energetic web, damn, life becomes so cool.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Gail. And thank you, listener, for listening. All the links to get in touch with Gail will be on the show notes. And think about somebody right now. Close your eyes and think of 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 people who who have tangled energy, who would like to and appreciate hearing Gail's wisdom today. And for this episode to them, they will thank you. And we will thank you.
Yes.
Gail, have a fantastic day. Thank you so much.
Oh, Chris, this has been a blast. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.